Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here, and today we are taking a look back at a ship that I still can't believe Wargaming released in the state that it was in when she was originally released, and a ship that is highly desirable and one that you can potentially pick up in the upcoming Santa Container event. You might be thinking, Sealord, isn't it a little early to be talking about the Christmas event? Normally, yeah, it is. However, the 10th anniversary event is right around the corner, and in that event, like we've talked about here on the channel, you can earn 32,000 doubloons, which, after earning all of them doubloons, you can turn around and use them in the Christmas event to potentially acquire this ship through the Santa containers. And since, again, you have 32,000 doubloons to use, there's a very good chance that you could potentially get, maybe not this ship exactly, but one of the rarer tier 10 ships. And this is definitely one of the ones that I know a lot of players are going to be going after in this event. So we're going to be taking a look at the one, the only, the tier 10 British resource ship, the Thunderer. Which, yes, this was actually a coal ship back in the day, oddly enough. Now, if you're newer here to the channel, you might not know that Thunderer and I had a little bit of a beef back in the day. My quick story with Thunderer is that I was, and still am, an enjoyer of the Grosser Kurfürst. It's one of my most played ships in the game. It's right up there with my most favorite ships in the game. And, well, you see, when Thunderer got released, it wasn't too long after I've actually gotten my Kurfürst. And you see, Kurfürst is a large target, and it's got a lot of armor, so many a ship just throw HE at the Kurfürst because, well, it'll catch on fire and burn down, because normally they can't get through the armor, right? So, when the British battleships were released, obviously wasn't an overly joyous occasion for me and my GK, and then a little while after they come out, the Thunderer gets released. And it seems that I'm constantly getting set on fire by the Thunderer in my GK, but I'm just thinking, it's a GK, everyone spams HE at it, Thunder is a British battleship, it's just, you know, it's your own confirmation bias that this ship is cracked that is causing you to have this view of Thunderer. So fast forward a little bit, and I finally acquire enough coal to pick up my own Thunderer, and then in my very first game in Thunderer, by just spamming HE, I got, I think, 320,000 damage in one match by spamming HE, which is just absurd in a battleship. Now, you might be thinking, well, that's not really that crazy, you know, HE sets fire, yeah, but this is quite a few years ago. This was before battleships really were allowed to use HE. The general mindset back in 2019 when the Thunderer was released is that battleships should primarily be using AP. And you would see in the chat back in the day that battleship players would be calling each other out if they, you know, dirtied their hands by pressing the 1 key and using HE against another battleship player. So it was a different mindset back in the day. But it wasn't like, you know, this thing set afire every other salvo. It was like it sets afire every single salvo. So I had that stupid game, and there were some other things about the Thunderer that are just kind of nutty, so I released a video calling it broken. That video got a lot of attention. Some people were very upset with me calling the Thunderer busted, and they actually wanted Wargaming, well, you can't see because the forums have been nuked off the face of the earth, but there were people in the forums calling for, like, me to get removed from the CC program because I said that, even though it was never part of the CC program. They were even wanting to talk about, like, reporting my video to get it taken down and trying to get Wargaming to issue a copyright strike against my video because it was, like, Thunderer slander or whatever, even though the ship was most definitely busted back then. So that happened, and then funny enough, like, I think like 10 months, maybe a year later, once more players had acquired enough coal to pick up the Thunderer, then the attitude seemed to turn that, hey, Thunderer is actually pretty broken. So that was a little, you know, kind of satisfying to see that happen. And then, of course, Wargaming went and removed it from the game for being, quote-unquote, too popular, which is Wargaming for it's broken. So what makes the Thunderer so broken, dear viewer, at least back in the day? Well, not a whole lot has changed on the Thunderer since she was originally released, but they have nerfed her a little bit, and I think it was a pretty good move in what they did here. But the Thunderer, she is essentially a Conqueror armed with 8 457mm guns instead of the 12 406mm guns you can find on the Conqueror. Now, on top of that, well, actually, before we get there, Oddly enough, this was actually a module option for Conqueror back in the day. You could take the 457mm guns instead of the 406mm guns. And they weren't all that accurate. She still had the British battleship dispersion pattern, which was terrible. So it wasn't really an overly popular option on the Conqueror. So they pulled it and then made this thing. On top of that, she has 1.9 Sigma and battle cruiser dispersion. For those of you that don't know, battlecruiser dispersion is much more consistent and better than battleship dispersion, but obviously isn't as good as downright cruiser dispersion. So 1.9 Sigma on 8 457mm 18-inch guns with battlecruiser dispersion. That's pretty good. And the reload time on these guns when she was released was a mere 26 seconds, which is beautiful. So a 26-second reload on 18-inch guns that can overmatch 30mm of armor with 1.9 Sigma and battlecruiser dispersion. That's pretty good. Oh, and her main battery range stock was 24.3 kilometers, which was absolutely fantastic. You could take the range mod, and if you really wanted to reach out there to like almost 30 kilometers, you could. Or you could take the reload mod, giving you a 22-second reload on 18-inch guns, and not just any 18-inch guns, Thunderer's 18-inch guns. So what makes these guns so special is, well, not only all the stats we just went over, but of course the ammo. You see, Thunderer, like the rest of the British battleship line, does get British battleship HE. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of any of the British battleships, you know their HE is terrifying. It has incredible alpha damage, and they have insane fire chances. The Thunder is no exception to that. Its HE shells have an alpha rating of 8,200 damage per shell, with a fire chance of 63%, which if you really hate people, you can pump that up to 65% by taking Demolition Expert and, of course, the fire flags. And many players will just take the fire flags just to, of course, get the even more ridiculous fire chance. And keep in mind, that is 63% per shell. And this isn't like other battleships where, like, yeah, it may have, good numbers here and good numbers there, but with the way that the dispersion is and the Sigma and such, you might only land a handful of shells per salvo. The Thunderer, usually, unless RNG just really hates you, you're landing, multiple shots per salvo. You're landing, like 5 out of the 8 shells in most cases. Again, unless RNG hates you. And even then, when you only land like 1 or 2 shells, if you're slinging HE, you're probably still setting a couple of fires. And this right here makes Thunderer so idiot-proof. You can play it with just touching the 1 key at the start of the match and never even touching the 2 key, and you will have a good game. You're going to get a big damage number. You're probably going to get Witherer. You're probably going to get Confederate and High Caliber. In fact, the match you're watching in the background, I'm actually on the phone for I think like 80% of this match, talking to somebody while still playing the Thunderer. And you can see the point that I gave up trying to get the AP to work in the opening phases because I was, again, talking to somebody and my shells weren't really landing. I just slap one and then you'll see how the ship performs. So yeah, you can play it like that, completely brain dead. And the thing is, unlike other ships where, you have to think about, okay, my positioning, where am I at, my angling, this, that, and the other, Thunder has other aspects about her that make her really safe to play in that manner. She has, if you build into it, which you're going to want to, a 12.5 kilometer detection range, ridiculously small detection range for a battleship of this size. So she's really stealthy, meaning that if you stumble into a non-favorable situation, you can just go dark and run away. Of course, it's kind of changed with submarines, and you'll see that in this match too, because of course submarines are really sneaky. If one of them lasts till the end of the match, then obviously they can kind of just chill inside of your detection range, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. But oddly enough, it seems like Wargaming was seeing into the future, because they gave Thunderer something else that makes her pretty darn useful in today's World of Warships, besides just, of course, the main battery guns. She comes with the Conqueror's legendary mod baked into her, which gives her a 10.1 second base rudder shift time, which is ridiculous. She has the rudder shift time of a cruiser on a battleship. which means, of course, when you are dealing with submarines, you have a really maneuverable battleship when they do pop up and their torpedoes start, working their way towards you, and you get that, 2-kilometer cutoff range with the battleship class, so that with the rudder shift unique upgrade basically built in, they're much less of a problem than if you were in something like the Conqueror without the unique upgrade. So that's kind of funny that that's still incredibly useful in today's World of Warships. And in terms of dueling with other battleships, you have this incredible rudder shift time, so you can quickly angle your armor or turn out of a situation that isn't necessarily favorable to your long-term survivability with the Thunderer here. And we haven't even talked about her AP shells. Her AP shells are, of course, crazy because, well, they're 18-inch shells with 1.9 sigma and battle cruiser dispersion, which means they friggin' hurt. So they have a 14,900 base alpha damage rating, and unlike the British Tech Line battleships, the Thunderer doesn't get the short fuse AP that you get on those battleships. So the fuse time is 0.33 seconds instead of the 0.015 seconds that you get on the British mainline battleships, which means that these AP shells really bite into armor. So when you do see another battleship showing a broadside, by all means, sling AP at them. You will rip incredible amounts of damage off of their ship, because you're probably going to land, again, 5 out of those 8 shells, unless RNG really hates you, and naturally, with a 14,900 alpha damage rating, you're going to inflict serious physical and emotional damage upon that ship. It's also really good, of course, for dealing with cruisers and such, because you can overmatch 31 millimeters of armor, which means you can bully most of the heavy cruisers that you see at tier 10. So yeah, that's just dumb. Now, there are some downsides. Like the Conqueror, the ship is absolutely coated in 32 millimeters of armor, so that does mean that HE shells, when they do find their way to you, they are going to most definitely hurt. And as you can see, there are a couple of Golden Blue Squadrons that do land on my Thunderer, and they do remove a sizable chunk of the HP of the ship. And she does have a lower HP pool, very much like the Conqueror. 82,900 is the base HP of the Thunder, but you can't get that up with a signal flag, of course, nowadays. However, she does get an improved repair party. It's not quite the same improved repair party that you get with the Conqueror, so it doesn't reprint, a third of the ship's HP. It does, however, regenerate 16.8% of the total HP of the ship, and it does have a 60-second cooldown time, so it's a pretty quick cooldown time on that heal, and it improves, and it has an improved HP recovery rate. So, while again not a Conqueror heal, it is still an improved heal. You also don't get any type of aircraft with the with the Thunderer, but you do get DFAA as well, so there's that. And she is a little on the slow side, topping out base at least, with a top speed of 29.5 knots. You can throw the speed flag on, then you have a 31.5 knot ship or something like that. So she can still get up and going at around what most tier 10 battleships go. She is a little on the slow side though, so there's that. And honestly, for what you trade off for what you get in the Thunder, it's not a lot of trading off. Because if you look at other ships that have incredible guns to this level, like the Bungo, the Slava, those ships give up, what make a battleship a battleship. They give up the armor and the HP. The Thunderer still gets 32 millimeter bow and stern plating, so she can still bow tank, corresponding battleships. The Slava and the Bungo, well, you can't do that. None of the Bungo's a battle cruiser, but still in the balancing of the ship and having her incredible main battery guns, she gives up, the bow and the stern armor. Slava, again, same thing. So Thunder doesn't really do that. You can still tank reasonably well in the ship. I'm not going to say you can sit there and, tank for days, because you can't. Concentrated fire is what takes out the Thunderer, and it does take it out quite quickly, but I would also argue that concentrated fire takes out most ships in the game quite quickly too. So yeah, Thunder back in the day was a real menace, and then Wargaming went and did something that was needed, but was also really scummy of them. So they announced that Thunderer was leaving because it was quote-unquote too popular. Wargaming, they haven't done this here recently because they don't really leave ships in the shop anymore. Of course, unless you want to, count the 40 ships they removed as part of the new rotation thing. But, they used to just put ships in the shop, and then if they were too popular, too powerful, they would pull them sometime later. But they would give the players a forewarning about this, so like a 2-month warning. So they announced that the Thunderer was being pulled, and of course, what does everyone do? Rush out and get Thunderer because it's such an incredible battleship. Then they pulled Thunderer in, what was it, 10.1? Update 10.1-ish, somewhere around there. And, well, after they removed it, 2 updates later in 10.3, I believe, they nerfed the Thunderer. Her main battery gun range was decreased from 24 kilometers to 23 kilometers, which was like, alright, that's not that big of a deal. But then they came back a couple of updates after that and nerfed it again from 23 kilometers to what it is today, 21.5 kilometers. So that was a more sizable nerf. However, I think it was probably the best nerf you could do with the Thunderer, because now you have to pick between the reload or the range mod. The reload mod, of course, still gives you that 22-second reload, but now your main battery gun range is 21.5 kilometers. So you're forced to play the Thunderer a little bit closer to the match. So you can't sit in the back and just HE spam, from 24 kilometers with a 22-second reload. So now you're playing closer to the danger zone, to the things that, hurt Thunderer. HE spam, other battleships getting close and running her down. So, that seemed pretty reasonable. Or you could take the range module and get the player from the back of the map and HE spam, but now you have a 26-second reload instead of that 22-second reload. So, much more balanced in my opinion. And then they did eventually buff the ASW on the Thunderer here. That was pretty recently. Was it like 13.1, 13.2? To where her ASW now goes out to 11 kilometers. So that was something that was very much needed. Having a 6-kilometer ASW range was kind of a joke on a Tier 10 battleship, like with the Musashi and what was the other one? The Massachusetts that had like the incredibly tiny ASW range. Yeah, that was just dumb. So in today's World of Warships, she's still fantastic, obviously. Again, the background match, I'm distracted most of the game, talking on the phone. Still have an easy, like almost 200k game, which a good chunk of it was me not shooting anything because I had to go deal with a Shimakaze, which of course led to me being really out of position for the latter part of the game, and I still almost had a 200k game not really trying and easily come top of the team. So if you do get lucky and pick this thing up in like a super container, or if you do get it in the Christmas container event at the end of this year, you've gotten yourself one hell of a ship, one of the single best set of battleship guns in the game, and what probably is one of the single best battleships in the game, hands down, with very few battleships being able to challenge her just on the gun power alone. So guys, this is my look back at the Thunderer. Let me know what you guys think about her in the comments down below. If you have one, you've been taking her out, how's she been doing for you? Or do you want to pick one up in the Center Container event? Is this what you're planning on spending your doubloons on trying to get? Or whatever. Let us know all that jazz in the comments down below. Hope you guys have a wonderful Tuesday, wonderful rest of your week. Hope to catch you guys in the next one.